Hello, hello.
Good morning.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mark. I saw your message. I didn't have a chance to reply. I will reply this afternoon.
No problem. Thanks.
Camera in the right angle. John, good morning. Dr. Thomas. Hey, hi, me. Bill, hi. Gary.
It's Team Amy.
Yeah, I'm young on it.
Yes, hi.
Yes. Good morning,
Hi, Dale. Hi, Blamah.
everybody.
Pick up the volume. Happy July 4th week. Some of you guys taking some time off work this week or just Friday?
I live in the fireworks capital of the United States, so we're leaving to get away from it. San Pedro, California. I don't know what it's like with your areas, but it's just gone crazy here.
Really? Well, I live in Pasadena, so I'm not far from you, but
And for the Canadians, happy Canada Day week, which is Canada Day is tomorrow, July 1st.
okay.
That's right.
Happy Canada Day.
Yeah.
Almost.
Almost.
Oh, I see a budding AI entrepreneur.
Yeah. You can never start too young.
So many people. Let's go ahead and get started. We bring the agendas. Screen.
Watching Clifford the Big Red Dog to keep her occupied.
Oh, right.
So
Some
that's,
things don't change over time.
yeah. You can watch it when there's a gap in the conversation.
Here we go. What agenda? Here we go. If you can see my screen, I suppose. All right, yeah. Perfect. So, yeah, again, happy. Last day of June, starting into full-blown into summer soon. Brian is joining. Thank you very much for being on the call today. Let me put the slideshow. Will be better for everyone. Here we go. So I will go to the news as Shabir is not available today. Then we will go and quick do a check with you guys. What's news to you? What new development, what new launch did you enjoy? Also, if you have any question, any challenge that you're facing for yourself, your own company, let's talk about that. Next, Bill, thank you so much for putting this presentation just before Canada Day on MCP and the use of agents. It's very much a new trend of using MCP. Really looking forward to learn more about it, how you use them, how we can discuss that and apply them. Later on, we'll go into the breakout room. So if we want to continue the conversation, MCPs and solution, we'll go with on room number 1, and then we have several rooms here: business, ethics, education, and health. When we finish the news section, I'll do a quick poll to see if who wants to join which one. When I do the poll, I'll discuss that. It's something we discussed in the leadership meeting, so I'll cover that in a little while. Let's go ahead and get started with the news. All right, so Google dropped the Gemini LCI. It's a command to offer 1,000 free daily calls around image video generation. It turns every developer terminal into a generative sandbox. So what that means is now the coders, the developer can directly work with Google Gemini behind the scenes, so to speak. So accelerating even more their ability to use the tools. They don't less keyboard use. They can directly use direct commands to work with that. So let's make it that much more rapid and easy to test and to build applications. 11 labs. I'm sorry.
Yeah, can I make a comment about this one? Why it's really important?
Go for it.
Right. So this Gemini CLI is along the same lines as Claude Code.
Yep.
And OpenAI has a product called Codex, a different from it has the same name as the one that's on the website. But the main difference between these products is that you run them on your own computer, but when they access your files, say it's in programming, which is the usual use case, it uses the full context. So it sees everything within the context window of the large language model is using. So it's a lot more powerful than, say, using something like Cursor. So the amazing thing about this is that Gemini or Google allows you to get 1,000 free calls a day. And if you ever use Claude Code, it's very expensive, and they're giving this away free. So this is really a big thing.
Any other comments on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, a few coders on the line. Thank you very much for that comment, Carlos. Very helpful. 11 Labs Inveil voice suite, so cloud assistant that plugs in calendars and MCP, and a sleek mobile that turns text prompt into studio-ready speech in seconds. So I was just reading about it. So apparently, it gives access to your calendars directly, so you can interact with it, create a voice application, a voice respondent directly from text from your phone in seconds, and basically interactivity between the apps, your calendars, and conversation. You can create podcasts. You can create as you talk to your phone. You can directly create presentation, voiceovers in different qualities for sales, for marketing, for assistants, and so on, and without the interaction of any other application. Anybody else has any news on that one? All right. ChatGPT rolls out record functionality for the Pro and Edu versions. And if you speak your thoughts and receive instant insights and open-ended question and auto-generated meeting notes. So I don't have anybody has the Pro or the EDU version on their for themselves? No one?
Yes, I have it.
Have you tried it, Dr. Thomas?
I haven't tried that function. I was primarily using it to turn text into video, and somehow it did not seem to be giving me the voice or the sound that I was getting from Manus. So I've been using Manus a lot to turn text into, like, I'm in the process of creating a movie. And so I have some lines of script that I'm putting in, and it's generating the short 8-second videos.
According to what I read on it earlier this morning, basically, think about Otter or Fathom when you're on the Zoom call that records everything and transcript, and you can even ask as you go. It's doing that on something that you do by voice. So if you're in a meeting, it will directly transcribe everything in 1 second, and you can ask questions and so on. So I guess it's a first step into competing with some of these other tools. I'm sorry?
Okay.
So look, again, it's a first step. I'm sure they continue to improve that, and at some point they'll take it to a lower version. And then Anthropic supercharged.
Quick question,
Please.
Christoph. Yeah, for the EDU version, was that for institutions or for education? Like, what does that mean?
Education, you're absolutely right.
So if you have an institution, you can potentially sign up under that, and I'm assuming there's a special type of tier.
I've never personally, Blamah, I've never looked into it directly, but that's exactly what he said on the website. So the teacher can use it to create podcasts in seconds. So you literally imagine, like, okay, I want to do a class about this, and that, and then it will create something for you.
You need a email that ends with edu, and to have that email, you need to belong to an institution.
Right.
So, like myself, I give classes, but I can't because I'm not a I don't have the email registered with edu.
Thank you.
They do it.
Blamah, do you happen to have EDU yourself?
I mean, with our affiliation with Penn, but I'm the dean of the Kingdom Business School. I just need to research to see how to do it. So I'm in the new process as far as launching our program. So I just want to know what the
If you
process
have an
is.
email that ends with edu, yes, instead
Yes.
of .com,
Okay.
if you edu,
Yeah.
you can, yes. You
Okay.
can get
Yeah, we currently have a .org, but I want us to sort of .edu when we get our new building. So I'm just kind of interested to see what the process is. Thank you.
Yeah, if you do happen to have access, please share with us on the next call if it's useful in your regard and what you can do. We have several people in the education, interested in education. That'll be very useful as well, not mine.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And then anthropic supercharged artifact user, so they can now remix and public cloud build apps, accelerating a community-driven innovation and click sharing. So I was trying to understand this one.
Yeah,
frankly. Go
let
ahead,
me
Carlos.
comment about this. Yeah, so Anthropic already had artifacts previously. What that means is that you can ask Anthropic to generate, like, for example, a website, and then you can publish that website. So that was already available. What they introduced now was that when you create an artifact, right, like a website, you can enable it with AI. So in other words, for example, you can create a chatbot website using Anthropic. So it creates the website and then it's calling back into Anthropic to provide the LLM functionality, and you can press a button and it publishes it for free, right? So you don't have to pay for the hosting costs. But to access the LLM that's underneath it, or the AI, you have to be an Anthropic subscriber. But the key thing is that you can now very easily deploy AI-enabled applications. But there are limitations. It's not going to be as full functional. Wouldn't have as full functionality as, say, if you actually built the apps from scratch from, say, something like Cursor or Lovable.
Very cool. What about, like, there was something about allows you to share very easily the information similar to GitHub, but even better. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, you get it just like if you have a GitHub account, then you can publish a web page, a website using GitHub, and it's free. So anyone can look at it. There's no hosting costs at all, right? So yeah, that's one tip, right? If you want to host a website that is static, right, you can just go to GitHub, right, and then you can create a static page and it hosts for free, right? Here it's kind of like it hosts for free, except for when you're actually invoking the LLM, then you must be logged in some way to Claude. I haven't tried it as a non-free person, but
okay. In Claude, if you share, you can publish, and if you publish in the free version, you can publish, but it's in the Claude server, or so it's not like your own, no? But you can share the link, and everybody can go to that, no? I do it with I do games with the students, and then I can share them, and they can go and play to that address.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing. I was actually researching it this morning. This now allows public sharing, remixing, and extending of cloud-built output. Think one-click forking like GitHub, but for AI creators. So this turns cloud into a co-creation lab. You can now explore what others are building with AI, duplicate and extend their work, or publish your own tools and frameworks for others to remix. I think that's the newer part of it. What any? Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to ask Carlos, how is this different from just embedding a call to one of the AI agents within some software? Because it's a one-line thing to do that, pretty much. It's free.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you need access to the AI somehow,
Well,
right?
yeah,
And
but
how do you provide that to the public without someone actually footing the bill? Because it's not exactly free to call an AI, right?
well,
And
okay. So you can also log into an account that you've got, or you can use the free version. and you just put it into a Web2 viewer window in your app and do a one-line call, and it puts it in there.
The artifacts in Anthropic allow you to yeah, so let's say you, what's a good example? Yeah, you're basically it unlike a regular application, these applications are AI enabled, so there is the logic behind it that is being driven by AI.
I see. And the websites that it creates, can you edit them like you would with a WordPress editor?
Well, that's the interesting thing, right? You can't. It'll generate the code. You can see the code, but you can't actually edit it directly. You have to talk to the AI about it. So it's some very strange thing, and I think they do it for security reasons.
Thanks.
I actually thought that was the part of the news, was that you could edit your artifacts at the same time. So because I've been using Claude to create a lot of code artifacts as well when I first started, and yeah, that was, I wanted to be able to edit instead of just typing into the chat, make these changes. So I was hoping that this new one was going to be, I could actually type into the chat, make these changes, or I could actually, if I knew what to change, I could type it in the actual artifact as well, and it would be reflected in the artifact. But
yeah, I believe they're printing this constraint likely for security reasons.
Yeah.
Well, there's a good meme in AI, and it goes like this: vibe coding, happy face; vibe debugging, frowny face. You can spin it up, you just can't turn the knob or dial.
Yeah, well, if you do enough vibe coding, you get an unhappy face a lot too.
You got to take it step by step. There is no free lunch, even though 99% of the folks out there are advertising free lunch.
Yeah, it can take you down some painful paths and then you have to sort of climb your way back to get to where you were sort of functioning.
For what it's worth, we've iterated pretty hard. We've gotten to a place where we've mitigated most of that. But what it comes down to is just doing the work, like everything. The skill set is determining when the AI gets it wrong.
Yes, that's becoming big. That's becoming really big right now. Is that especially when I'll talk about that with agents as well. As there's a whole area in agents called evals, and that's what it's all about. Is tools to basically prove that it's actually working the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah, the joke we have internally is there is no such thing as a probabilistic firewall. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I even get that joke. That's scary.
Any other pieces of news that you guys saw on your end that you would like to cover? Any new application tools? Any challenges?
Yeah, I'll share something with you all.
Please.
Redwood SDK. Redwood SDK. Integrated with Cloudflare. It is the framework to build full stack apps, real full stack apps. And in the process of doing it, you'll learn every single bit that's going across the wire. It's an amazing package. It's run by a guy named Peter Petronas out of South Africa. He's a good dude. I followed him for years. And it is germane to the conversation you're having today, because one of the bits of spice within that is RPC, remote procedure calls. That's actually the spice within Model Context Protocol also, allowing you to bridge multiple environments and make it look as if it were just one single computer program. I would say that over the months and years, that type of approach is, I think, going to be the one that's going to be mostly adopted by the developers working with AI.
John, could you explain a little bit more about how Cloudflare sort of like fits in the AI space? Because I know they're doing a lot of stuff, And Cloudflare is really kind of like this kind of proxy server, right? And there's somehow in the AI space and providing a lot of capabilities.
Cloudflare is next level. It is. I created my first tech company in the early 90s, and I'm all about networking platforms. And Cloudflare literally gives you all the functionality you might want. For example, durable objects is a serverless stateful environment with a built-in SQL database of 10 megabits. A Redwood SDK starter package spins up the framework for you instantly, giving you auth, giving you a database that's wired up, running on web standards, response request. But I don't want to get into the weeds on the technical side, but also allowing you to use what's called React Server Components, which is the cutting edge of building full stack apps, which again is using this remote procedure call, which we've had since the 80s, to be able to accomplish what has been the biggest struggle in building full stack apps. Your front end and your back end are different environments, and you have to create this crazy ball of yarn abstraction in order to sacrifice clarity for composition. But most of the struggle that y'all are going to have in working with AI is just that sacrifice of clarity for composition. So you're able to create something. You just can't change it. You just can't adjust it. You just can't tailor it or maintain it. There is no free lunch. Folks that are going to be able to build and succeed in the space are the ones that are going to do the hard work, but the AI will allow them in a couple months to do what might have taken a few years to gain that knowledge. Cloudflare and Redwood SDK basically gives you everything that you need to be able to build a full stack app and treat it as if it were just a computer program. And the other big thing about Cloudflare is that through something called a mini-flare emulation, you're able to, on your local machine, absolutely replicate the production environment. And that's next level insane. That is just ridiculous. Locally, you can run your app. It's not a mock database. It's actually SQL on your machine. And when you bring it up to the production environment, it's just a PNPM release, and you're live. And you don't have what happens on every other framework. It works on my machine. It doesn't work in production. So it really is a fairly amazing platform. Cloudflare made a full commitment a couple months ago. They had their developer platform kickoff. They have a blog. It's pretty well documented. Documentation's good. They even have a section where they generate it into LLMS text for you, so you can put it into the AI and ask questions. And I would really urge you to jump into that, because if you learn Redwood SDK and Cloudflare, you will learn the basics, not just to build full stack apps, but you'll learn the basics that govern modern context protocol. And I would argue that an AI agent is just an augmented LLM, and MCP context protocols in part add that augmentation. So I'm sorry to go off on a rant there.
Yeah, does Cloudflare support MCP now?
Oh yeah, Cloudflare introduced support for MCP, probably one of the first out there to do it. MCP came around April 4th, 2004, when Anthropic came out and said they were able to manage 50 tools at a time when OpenAI could only manage 5. And then they released that within Claude Sonnet, and then they released it independently. And as soon as they, not as soon, but Cloudflare was one of the first major platforms to become MCP compatible.
Mark, you have a question? Yeah, I saw you on mute, Mark. I accidentally muted you.
Yeah, I thought that was absolutely fascinating, John. Could you put some links into the chat so you can get us started off?
Yeah, let me put something in for Redwood.
John, I will go a step
Your own
further.
time.
Do you think in coming weeks you will mind, you'll be, is it something you could show us a little bit, demo us a little bit?
Yeah, well, let me put the link in real quick. And yeah, Carlos put in too. I can, let me share with you my the workflow that I developed in order to go through the material. So I'll create a study guide for myself. I use O3 Pro, and I'll take that study guide and I'll put it in a notebook LLM, and I'll create an easy listening podcast for myself on the study guide material. That's a great way to get through this material, because you read it, you listen to the podcast, and with the recent updates in Notebook LM, you'll have a study guide generated for that podcast. You'll have a frequently asked questions, and you'll get essay questions and answers. And you know, for old timers like us with our analog reptilian brains, it's nice to be able to get that information visually and also hear it. You know, it makes it a lot easier to pick it up.
Great.
So when you take a look at Redwood SDK, they have really accessible docs. The owner, Redwood SDK, Peter Petronas from South Africa, is all about giving folks the power to be able to compete and succeed at a level beyond their own individual capabilities, to allow small folks to be able to compete like the larger folks. He's very impassioned in that regard. So unlike any other full stack framework out there, he decomposed everything. He took away all the magic. And if you make the commitment to go through his material and learn it, you will be learning the basic building blocks down to the metal of not just how to build apps. It will inform you with model context protocol. It will inform you as far as agents are concerned. And it would also allow you, if you want to do Svelte JS, or you want to do some other React router, some other React framework, you want to do TAN stack, or whatever it might be, you'll understand what's going on under the hood. So much better without taking the 10 or 20 years of going through it to figure it out.
So John, would it be fair if I ask you maybe in a few weeks or whenever you're ready to come and present a little bit on that? Would that something you'll be comfortable with?
Yeah, what I'd like to do is in a few weeks, I'll probably have some prototype apps that I'm building out for clients. And maybe we could even go through one of them, and I'll be able to show you how I was able to use this platform to easily create that app. Because, you know, and again, I've been in the AI space. I created my first tech company in 90. 10 years ago, I was known as Old Man AI. I find that to be embarrassing. But, you know, we're actively going out to businesses. We've sat down with, Greg and I don't know, close to 100 maybe in the last 8 or 9 months. We got a pretty good idea, the flavor out there. And building a full stack app to be able to assist in an AI integration is critical. It really is. And I'm sure a lot of the folks on this call that have built companies understand you go home from the dance with whom you brought. You either control the levers or the levers control you. And if you want to get into the space and actually be able to build stuff for folks, you know, farming it out to some third party isn't as powerful as being able to learn how to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Well, looks like a very, very interesting, something that will interest a lot of people on this group. So John, we look forward to that. Thank you for sharing this link. When you have the link for the podcast on Notebook LM, feel free to put it in WhatsApp as well.
I have a few.
Good. Put them in the WhatsApp under the core group. I'm sure quite a few people will be happy to listen to them if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, why don't we follow up afterwards? They're fairly large files. It's just I access them through my own Google Drive right now. So
I see. Yeah, press
Also got
record. Yeah.
redistributed. Yeah.
Hey, Miguel, go for it, please. You're on mute, Miguel.
Yes, I shared a video that it shows a new LLM that it's not LLM, it uses diffusion to make code, and it's completely fast. It's amazing how fast it is, and the technique that it's using is the diffusion, the same technique that they use to make pictures. But it seems that you can watch the video, and maybe we can talk about it next session. But it was amazing that it was very good, not as good as the best models, but very good, but completely like in 4 seconds instead of it could handle a lot of tokens in a very small time, so they are cheap. So it's very interesting. That's it.
The coolest part about it is when you see it create, you start from that static to
yeah.
So it's using Markov to do that, but it's also using a conditional statement within it. It's using a text conditional statement, and it's still the probabilistic process. It's using Markov to time step to that final outcome.
But it's amazing how fast it is.
Yeah.
Beautiful. We're looking forward to expand on that more. I'm sure that we'll have quite a few conversations. John, thank you so much for this. All right, it's 11:32. I would like to make sure we have enough time to cover the next topic. And we are going to we continue to talk about MCP since we started the conversation a bit with that, and agents. And Bill, thank you so much. Bill, as a consultant, is creating a company solution and using MCP and agents. And today is going to take us a little bit to some example of what he does. Bill, thank you for that. Our mic is yours. And we can see your screen, Bill. Bill, can you hear me? Is your mic on the mute? Oh, no, you're good. I can't hear. Can anybody hear me, Bill?
I can hear you, but I can't hear Bill.
Yep.
Okay, it should be good now.
You're good now.
Okay. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is I got the red and white slides because it's Canada Day here. So I'm in Ottawa, so national capital of Canada. So that's I'll use these colors. So I'm going to talk today about AI applications and AI agents and a little bit about MCP. And we actually got into a little bit of that. All great points, John, earlier on the MCP front. I'm also an old timer as well. So I was in the RPC and the API world and the WebSocket world and all those wonderful things many years ago. And then so it's kind of nice to have these layers, these sort of abstraction layers put over top of everything that makes it a lot easier to deal with as well than what we had to deal with many years ago. So before I start, this is just I've kind of collected. I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for today, but I've been working on a lot of AI agents and doing a lot with MCP as well. So I sort of collected a bunch of things that I've been doing, and I will talk about it. But this is a slide that I actually use for with most of my clients. I focus on enterprise AI. John, have you been at these meetings before?
Usually Greg carries the meeting. I think I've been in one before.
Oh, okay, great. No, I just it was I didn't have a memory, but it was all great stuff in there. So, but anyways, I do a lot of enterprise AI. I have lots of clients as well in Canada and a couple hopefully in the States soon as well. So it's we were all familiar with these types of applications. This is a little framework I came up with just to work with clients, right from AI chatbots to just general prompting and conversational AI through AI applications. I do a lot of work with various development tools as well, with Cursor and Claude Code, and I just started looking at Gemini CLI as well, and then Client is another one that's kind of interesting that works and a lot of them are based on the Visual Studio Code as the base as well. So it's I've been using those tools to create AI applications. I've created an AI readiness assessment out of just using which I call an AI application as one example. And then AI copilots, we're kind of all familiar with the copilot. That word's been tossed around by a lot of vendors, but primarily Microsoft. And then AI assistants. And then about 2 years ago, I got into AI automation, so I spent a bunch of time there. What's really interesting about AI automation is that there's lots of cool tools out there, but as you get more and more into AI agents, you realize, hey, maybe we don't need this AI automation anymore. And so it's one of those fields that, it seemed like it was going to be a big thing. And then as agents have started to develop, there's more and more that you can give to the agents as long as you can validate that the agents are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Then there may be a general trend downward from AI automation in the future. And then AI employees are really just sort of what we take AI agents and we sort of focus in on particular roles. So business development representative or sales development representative. We've created an AI version of that we call an AI employee, and they usually companies with this companies will actually use that agent or the employee side by side with new staff, so that the new staff can sort of gain experience with that agent, and then at the same time the agent's learning as well. So it's so eventually you could rely much more on an AI employee versus a real employee or some sort of combination thereof. And then another area, AI digital twins, is I've had this area. I've had an interesting experience with working with warehousing and logistics companies, and their warehouse management, and actually building a digital twin of that, but based using AI to build a digital twin, but having AI within the digital twin as well. So when you're moving things around the warehouse and things are coming in and going out on trucks, and they're coming at all different gates within the warehouse, it can all be sort of you can actually do what if scenarios and planning of how you should lay out your warehouse using the digital twin. And so that's another area I think is pretty powerful as well. And the last one is AI orchestration, and that's really what we're seeing with AI agents here. The next step in AI agents is orchestrating large collections of AI agents, and so it's working together. And the nice thing about AI agents is that we'll get into this, but you don't tell them how. You basically say, this is my goal, this is what I want you to do, and here's a whole bunch of tools that you could potentially use, and you figure out how to use them. Well, if you have 5, 10, 20, 100 agents talking together, being orchestrated together, then you can sort of see that the power of that comes through orchestrating many agents. You see the power, but you also see the risk. And so you really do have to put in, which I'll talk about now is a big trend in AI agents, is these evals, and basically there's tools to sort of validate that AI agents are doing things right. Because when you're using these things in business, it's like John's joke earlier, it's in business, these things have to be reliable. And that's one of the problems with agents right now, is that you can't really rely on them 100%. Like with AI automation or automation and AI automation, you can actually rely on them fairly well. But when you introduce agents into the process, they can take all kinds of different paths, and depending on the LLMs you're using, there's all kinds of risks with hallucination that may show up once in 1,000, but it could be that one in 1,000 you don't need it to see it, sort of thing. It'll cause grief for the organization. So this is how I structure them all, and just from a personal point of view, my focus has been really on AI agents and AI employees, and then AI automation I did a lot of, but I'm kind of moving away from that now, and I am starting to focus more on AI orchestration, and we'll continue with the rest of the tools. So I use this slide just to sort of describe the difference between AI assistants and automation to AI automation to agentic AI. not, it's, I'll only mention that, basically, don't, this is just this traditional use of AI assistants. And then there was sort of this automation that occurred, RPC, it was, sorry, not RPC, remote procedure automation, RPA. And then so that's kind of where automation started. And then when they started to add AI components, so when you can actually call your LLMs or whatever in your AI automations to do things and decide on things, then that became AI automation. And then now, like, as I said, AI agents, they really just pursue goals, they solve problems, they make decisions, and they do it pretty much autonomously as well. So it's still good practice to put a human in the loop mechanism into some AI agent work as well, just for now. But the long-term goal is to potentially not have the human in the loop as well. But no one will admit to that. But that's kind of where they're trying to go. And then agentic AI, which is really around the orchestration. I kind of like this term, sort of swarm intelligence. It's just basically a lot of agents working together. It's like a battleground of agents that are all cooperating together to achieve the goal, sort of thing. So that's kind of the structure that I use. I'm going to just say that from a difference between AI assistants and agents, AI assistants are really like helper tools designed to support humans, whereas AI agents tend to be more autonomous actors with goals and decision-making abilities. Now, it's not a black and white. It's a continuum of that, but that's kind of the main difference. Just because of time, I'm going to go a little bit rapidly. So I'm going to talk about AI agents now. So everyone's okay so far? Okay. The elements of an AI agent. I don't try to come up with a good definition of AI agents. They're just modern agents. Don't just chat. They plan, they decide, they act autonomously across multiple steps and tools, multiple environments, and could be nowadays agents could work locally and remotely, or just remotely, or just local sort of thing as well. But typically an agent it uses tools, a set of tools, and it has memory, and it uses a large language model. So a lot of people say for an agent, this is the large language model is the brain, and then the brain, the tools, and the memory, and then there's agents have a little bit more of a structured approach. I'm not sure if somebody's wanting to talk or.
So if somebody was unmuted, I took care of it. Thank you.
Okay. So that's the kind of this larger diagram is kind of the model, and then this is from N8N, a tool that I use for process automation. But they've done a really good job of AI agents, and I'll show you one in a minute. And it's really, this is in the modeling tool. This is the node that you create for an AI agent, and you can point to a chat model. You can pick whatever chat model you want. If you've got APIs for a variety of them, I have processes where I use different chat models in a single in the process. I have multiple agents, and I use different chat models for the agent depending on what that agent is doing as well. And then memory, there's a variety of memory tools available, or nodes available as well, and it just stores the memories about the conversations that you're having with the chat model as the agent continues to operate. And so it's all part of the maintaining good context, and the memory is a big part of the context as the agent operates. And then the tools, this you select this, and you'll have a variety of tools. So I created a quick little sample of one here. This is an AI agent I created. I wanted to show this one because this one I used anthropic chat model, and I just used simple memory. You can use a variety of different memory models. I showed you this one because I wanted to show you that one of the downsides right now of AI agents, and this is why MCP, I'm sort of shifting into MCP here. One of the downsides of AI agents is that I can add a tool that will help the agent. If the agent has to do anything about finding a file or a folder on a drive, I can use this Google Drive tool. But each tool has a multitude of methods that it can make available or exposes. It's kind of like an API. You have multiple things you can call through the API. So it's so anyways, one of the downsides with AI agents without MCP is you have to put in all of those tools so that if the agent has to, in this case, if the agent has to search a folder, this tool handles it. If the agent has to upload a file or download a file, so upload a file, download a file, or if you want to share a file with somebody, you have all of these different tools you have to add. And with MCP, what happens is a part of the standard is it basically exposes, here's all of the tools that this MCP server provides, and you don't need to. All I would put in is one single node here. I would put in the MCP client node in here, and I could specify access this MCP server, and it will know all of the things that it can do. So it avoids this big piece of work in automating your processes. So I'll do a quick little demo here. I think some of you may have seen this. This is I call it a project coordinator demo. To do this, I have to here, I'll do it all from here, and I just need one other thing. So this is a project coordinator AI agent, and its goal is I'll just open this up and look. So the user message, your role is to determine the message intent through the request or command from users, the user's chat message provided to you it's going to be through Telegram in this example. Think carefully on what specific tools to execute based on. So this is kind of with an agent, you don't really get into the precise how-tos. So I'm just going to pause that for a sec. And then there's also a system message you create, and you get a little bit more aggressive with the system message. I always struggle with sometimes where the right place is for system messages versus user messages. I find the system message seems to get a little bit more respect. I don't know why that is, but so I basically say you are a helpful project coordinator AI assistant, and give it a name. And you always, whenever you're in an agent, you always want your agent to know what's the current time, because your agents are always, they're basically real-time things that are running all the time. So you let that know, and then you basically tell it the role of the agent. Your role is to interpret user messages from Telegram chats, integrations, and accurately execute tasks by using the available tools at your disposal. And then you can actually be this is part of the giving the context for the agent. So you can define a personality and a behavior for Sally as well. And then you can actually give it instructions. I try to minimize the instructions. Like an agent should be able to figure out a lot of it as well. In this one, I got a little carried away. And then I talk about formatting instructions for outputs and stuff like that. So this is the idea of, in that previous diagram, when I said your prompt came down to your agent, this is the kind of prompting you do. What's really neat about prompting in this model, though, is that you don't have to you don't have to tell it how to do things. It will figure out. It'll use the large language model. So basically, it'll use OpenAI chat model down here, and based on the prompts that are in here, it'll work with LLM to figure out what to do and what tools it needs, and then it'll execute these tools. So I'm just going to show you a quick example of this. This is a pretty rapid example. I'm just going to do one I just did previously here. So I'm in Telegram now. I'm going to basically execute this workflow. Back to Telegram. So it's waiting for a trigger event. So I'm just going to take this last message I did here. So this is basically Lisa Wallace, an employee. She wants to talk to Sally, who's the AI agent. And just to let her know, I'm letting you know that I will not be available for project work for the next 3 weeks. And then for whatever reason, and I can put that in, I can press enter, and then you can see the process executes. It's executing there. I just got to get this thing out of the way. Not the best demo. I should have got this out of the way, but. So what it did is I don't know if you saw, but you can see sort of the circular rotating icons here that shows you the steps it goes through. And what it did is it took the message from Telegram, brought it into there, and basically figured out using the LLM, figured out what to do. And then in this case, it just had to do send an email message to the project manager, and then send back a message back to Telegram saying that what they did. So that's the message that came back in Telegram. I have notified the project manager regarding Lisa Wallace's unavailability for the project for the next 3 weeks. So this is a very, very incredibly simple example, but I just wanted to sort of show you how it works. And then the big thing is that you really don't describe how to do things. You just, what's the goal? So this one there's other questions I could ask it, like what projects. So if so let me just do that one, and I'll try that one again. I just want to make this a little smaller so you can see a few things. So I'll just take this one here. Who are on what projects? Okay, so you can see it's executing now. No, I haven't updated my connections for the Superbase. So I haven't used this one for quite a while. So that's what the problem is, that I just we'll leave it at that. But what it does is it goes to Superbase, finds out all the projects. Or if I was asking about employees, it would go to Superbase and find out about the employees. And then it can also I've also got other roles in there as well. Basically a PMO lead, so they would get emails and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's an HR lead, so if there's a need to get another employee, then the HR lead will be communicated with as well. So that's just a very simple example of an agent at work. So that was what I just ran through. I just give you another. This is an example of one I just did recently for a client. This is 3 agents, and it's basically a inventory AI agent. So there's and then there's a receiving AI agent and a shipping AI agent. And then the inventory one, there's a scheduled timer for this AI agent, and the agent basically can every minute this agent runs, and it checks to the inventories in the various warehouses and looks for where there's critical levels of the inventory, and then it sends messages onto Microsoft Teams and also an email message about that to the inventory manager. And then these guys basically, there's a webhook, so they have another system they use for recording receiving of items to the warehouse. And that application can call this webhook, which calls this AI agent, and that AI agent actually checks the inventory levels, uses this connection here to check the inventory levels, and then can also update the inventory levels based on what was been received as well. And then a shipping AI agent. So there's this one here. I just implemented it as a web chat interface, so they can just type in that we're shipping 1,000 units of this particular item, and then it'll update the database, and then the database it'll look at the location inventory and then also update the database. Brian had a question. Oh, you're on mute. Oh, there you go.
I did have a question. Looking at both of these, Bill, you have basically an automation of a total flow. So you're going from beginning to end, and actually the AI is doing everything.
Doesn't have to be. No.
Okay, so my question for you is, what is best practice to put a human decision point in this process?
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think from a best practice point of view, it depends on the application, but almost for this one in particular, they all wanted basically a human in the loop on this one. They wanted a validation. So when they get the email, when the agent occurs, and it's the validation is it's actually the shipping manager that gets the email in this case. so he can validate things if he wants to as well. There's I'm thinking in terms of best practices now. There's really, just because you can't rely on AI agents quite yet. They're just not 100% reliable, and so there's always there is a technique for including a process that includes a human in the loop to do validation, and I actually call it validation in the loop, and because it's but more, right now with AI agents, you pretty much have to have that human in the loop doing validation, just because you're not, it's not, you could be at 95% accuracy if there's thousands of these things running, or you could be 97. That's not good enough. It's basically, it's got to be the 100%. And right now, none of the large language models, like I get, the more and more I use AI and large language models, the more and more I realize how bad they really are. And it's just like I spent 4 days last week with a process for developing for another client, developing leads in that for various particular types of organizations, and it was, no matter what I put in to control hallucination, I just couldn't win the battle. So it's okay. I think Blamah.
If I could just add on for a quick minute, it's what a remarkably salient point, Bill. There's no reasoning here. There's no logic here. There's no intelligence whatsoever. It's a super intelligent worldview. It's dumber than your household cat. And even on these simple applications, you got to have human in the loop. As you mentioned earlier, enterprises failing in introducing human in the loop because they don't want the human in the loop. Well, guess what? If prediction was perfect, every casino on the planet would shut down tomorrow. As the joke goes, I don't know about you, I'm betting on the house. We'll get the 99.9. We won't get the 99.99.
Yeah, exactly.
We just won't. The math informs us. So the skill set here is, how do you integrate the human in the loop? And the last bit I would mention is the most recent update to the MCP standardization on 6.18 introduced elicitations, where the servers can now request additional information from the users using RPC. That is the sauce right there.
Yeah, and then a lot of there's more and more reinforcement learning going on as well within the models, and that they're getting better and better, but they're not. They still got a long way to go. I'm literally disappointed with AI when it comes to reliability. It's just like for my own use and for clients' use, it's just not there.
But don't be disappointed. Blame Thomas Bayes, the father of probability theory. It is what it is. Artificial intelligence is an advanced game of chance. The math informs us.
Yeah.
But if you integrate the human in the loop, you can get the job done.
Yeah, and I haven't dug into evals yet, but the whole idea, there's tools in that for testing your AI agents that are, and I'm sure evals have got to be using something like reinforcement learning and stuff like that as well, just to sort of do the work. But
the best industry guy for evals is Hamel Hussein.
Yeah.
He's done a few conferences back in the day. His information is spot on.
Yeah. Okay,
Blamah, you have a question? Blamah, you have a question?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, you can.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So this is a great presentation, Bill. I'm familiar with traditional automation, and I've been just starting to kind of get into AI automation. And so I'm looking potentially to start doing some work as far as in government. And obviously local government, there's a lot of issues around just admin. There's a lot of inefficiencies in a lot of those workflows. And you talked about some of the hallucinations that are taking place with Agentic AI. Do you recommend it being best to start with, traditional automation, even to AI automation, and then building from there maybe for the future as far as doing these?
That's kind of the path I took. Was I went with traditional RPA and or process automation, basically. And then I went into AI automation and using basically the nodes for accessing large language models, and being very very careful in the prompting of those. those that know me, I've got a lot of structured frameworks around prompting and building. I'm not shy of having large prompts with as well for doing the work, but that's kind of the next phase. But then you can still, there's lots you can do with AI automation that doesn't require, 100% reliability. So it's I as an example, I create, I use AI automation to create a lot of content. I create a lot of pre-engagement deliverables for clients using AI automation. And, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Do you mind if I delay questions and maybe do questions in the breakout room? Because I've still got a fair amount to get through. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So I just want to talk a little bit about agentic AI. And so the agentic AI is really orchestrating a collection of AI agents. This is an example, just an example of one that I have. I didn't create this, somebody else did, but and it's in N8N as well. And it's basically retrofuture. This is a master assistant. So this is like the orchestrator. And then there's their chat model. There's the memory for the conversations. And then there's all these are actually other workflows in N8N. And so what I do for the master, this is actually the prompt I put in for the master. I actually start up here. The whole thing is a prompt from the master. This is what you are. Here's the available agents. So all of these agents, I describe what each of the agents do. And then same thing, these are more of the agents, more of the agents, more of the agents, more agents, etc. So it's and I provide a few other things around routing rules, but I don't really describe too much. I just sort of describe what, I'm not saying how or anything. I'm just saying what do all these agents do. And then, so I have it on the next slide here. Okay, so this is I took one of those agents. So this is this one here, the artisan production agent. So this is the artisan production agent. It has a bunch of tools. I haven't configured these in here, but so this agent, basically you are a retro future gadgetry artisan production agent. You're coordinating the handcrafting process for raw materials to finishing these retrofuturistic gadgets. I'll just leave it at that. And I basically say, here's all the tools. Here's the chat model it's using. And then here's all the tools you have access to. So I describe what each of the tools do. And then I provide a little bit about production standards. And this is more context that you're adding to the prompt. And so that's how for each one of these are defined that way. And then each of those has the tools that it needs to do the job, to get the job done. And then when this one fires up, this one gets called from another application. The web is basically with N8N when you're running this, when you run this permanently, it just has a web, and then you can access this workflow, the master orchestration through this webhook tool as well. So that's basically. I'm going to skip over that. There's a lot more I can show you on this stuff. Here's the rest of all of the other agents associated with that one thing. But they're actually fairly simple to build. And even though it looks busy, the decomposition approach is just wonderful. And you can get, from getting them working and getting them reliable, it's good to sort of piecemeal them like this as well. So just going to talk, how much time do you think I have?
5 more minutes will be okay.
Okay, probably not, but let's go. I wanted to show you some real stuff too, but we may not have time for that today. So it's okay.
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
I wanted to look at coding agents, and we talked about some of these already today. But I use Cursor a lot, and then just as an example, when someone says Cursor, well, Cursor has an agent that you use to develop code. And so this is the agent here. You can type in a new chat. You can have different models, but I use the chat one, the agent one, almost all the time to get it to do things. So and then I use Claude Code as well, which is Claude. I think.
Let me do something different first for 1 quick second. If you want to continue that conversation on MCP agent, please stay here. Don't. I'm going to open the rooms now, but don't go in any of the rooms. Stay here. If you want to go and talk about if you have a business challenge or project for yourself, that you would like to discuss, you'll go in the second room. If you were to discuss ethics and education, topics around that, please go in room number 3. And then if you want to discuss health and innovation, go in room number 4. But if you want to stay on MCP, do not go in the first room. I already created it. But so you see the rooms there. If you're interested in staying in this conversation, stay there. Stay where you are. Otherwise, please go in any of the rooms that you see on your screen. And this way, I don't have to interrupt you, Bill, until we close the rooms later on.
And I'll be going to MCP right after this slide.
And no, don't stay here. Just stay in MC. Stay where you are. We'll stay here all the way. We don't have to go anywhere. So if you're interested in any of the other rooms, please go there. Otherwise, Bill, please continue.
Okay.
Can you do the poll just to find out whether everyone wants to stay here or go to a small group?
Let me launch the poll.
That way
I didn't
we
have
can
time
know.
to go through that. I was going to do it next week, Rails, to do a good job. So if you want, anybody wants to go into either the business, if you have a challenge that you want, put it there, you know, answer the poll. If you want to discuss ethic and education, I put them in the same room for the time being, I apologize. And then health. Anybody wants to go? So there's some people for business, and I see at least a couple of people for business and challenges. Then feel free to go in that room. Ethics, there's 1 so far. I give it 20 more seconds. Anybody else? 1, 2. All right, so 3 people going for business, and there's only 1 for ethics so far, so we won't go there. And but if there's 3 people for business, challenges, and project, if you want, go in that room now, and you can always come back if you finish between the end of before we close the rooms. Otherwise, and yeah, we'll do a better job with the poll next time. All right. Let's go ahead and continue. So business and challenges, go in room number 2, and everybody else stay here. Thank you.
Okay. So this is the last piece on AI agents I wanted to talk about, because AI agents are, it's a big piece of software development. Is, there's, really Claude Code really is an AI agent. Manus is really an AI agent. Gemini CLI is really an AI agent. So it's and then all of the development tools, Visual Studio Code has Copilot that you can use as well, which is an AI agent. And then within Cursor, you can also use another agent called Klein in Cursor. So I use both of them. I use Cursor, the agent in Cursor, and I use the agent in Klein. I'm kind of just testing out Klein. It's supposed to be a little bit better results with Klein than with just using the standard Cursor agent. So that's I'll just show you what I did something this morning just to give you a feel for, and this will be about the most technical part of the day. So what I did is I took I'll show you one other thing. I have a data model that I use for ecosystem management. That's one of the areas that I do work in. So I've got a data model, traditional data modeling tool that I use to do that, and then I can generate the data definition language for that. And then what I did is I took the in here, you can see this is the data definition language that comes from the model. So here's down here, here's all the tables that get created. And then I think John was talking earlier about RPCs and APIs and all those kind of things. So I basically told in Cursor, I used the AI agent in Cursor. And I said, create, read, update, and delete API from the DDL, so the data definition language, so for all these tables. And then it basically did its work and created all of the data, all the code required for the data definition. I didn't touch any code on this, okay? All I did was create the data model, and even the data model, the initial data model, I used either Anthropic or OpenAI to say give me a first cut of what the data table should look like for this application, and then I took that and then I brought it into the modeling tool and made it the way that I wanted it. So basically did all the work, and then it summarizes, okay, the CRUD API endpoints for the main entities are created and all of that. And you can see down here, here's the code that it created, the green things here. And so I can look at that code for that. And then And then as I'm coding this, I actually keep the server and the client running all the time. So when it creates new code, it actually updates my server and all of that. So it's and then I have a testing tool. So I want to test the API. So I basically know that this is what I have to type in to test the API. And so this is going to give me all the existing ecosystems I have in my database, because I've actually used this database before. And so it runs it. And then this is the result. It gives me back the results. So that's not too shabby for just having a data model and not writing any code whatsoever. So what's next? I was hoping to do it before today, but I'm going to go into this tool and go to Klein. And then in Klein, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, based on this API, create me the MCP server that I need to access this API. And I haven't done it yet. We'll see how it. I'll report next meeting, sort of thing. How that works. So it's pretty, from a software development point of view. Like I was many like 25 years ago, I was a developer, and I was a solution architect, and then I did all the enterprise architecture things. So it comes in handy. But boy, I don't need much of that knowledge to actually get these things done. And then there's the initial frustration in using the tools, and you just have to get used to the way they work. And then agents, like I said earlier, even in these tools with good agents, sometimes they take you down some bizarre paths. And so I should have showed you that in the tool, is that once I get what I want, I can say accept all right there at the bottom of the agent, and then it'll make everything permanent. It doesn't update GitHub yet, but I can get it to do that too. And then or if I don't like what it's done, I can do a reject all. So if you're constantly using the agent and you're doing things that look really good, like they work, definitely do an accept all on it, because what you'll find is as you do more and more, the agent does get a little confused, and it starts over time. There's so much going on, and the context is long. The agent will actually get confused and start making mistakes. And then if you don't have that accept all, when you say reject, it'll basically wipe out everything that you did before. So that's one lesson learned from that one. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about MCP now. So that's it to the agent piece. Again, I'm just going to keep it really simple. The MCP is an architecture, protocol, a system that whatever way you want to think about it, that helps AI remember what it's working on, the connection with your tools, and I forget what that last part says. But the general thing about MCP is that it can run things. Basically, you're using your computer as a host, and Claude Desktop was the first sort of tool that allowed you to sort of use MCP servers and that. But the model is basically host with an MCP client, so that's Claude Code in my case, or in the case of development tools, like I just showed you with Cursor, you can actually access MCPs as well through there. So you sort of host an MCP client as well. And then your MCP servers you can have as many. You basically define them. Well, lots of vendors have their own MCP servers now, and then you can create your own MCP servers. I've created a C# MCP server just to do simple things myself. And then, as I just explained to you earlier in the previous slide, I can actually get a AI agent in the tools to create me the MCP server to access created just earlier. So it's so that would be a server here. Now, MCP servers can actually access a lot of local resources. This slide says data sources, but it should say resources, because an MCP server can access etc. So there's so really it's the servers are numerous as well. And then something I'll talk about later is that vendors like Docker now are actually they have a toolkit, an MCP toolkit in Docker. So Docker provides you lots of virtual environments that run on your local computer or on various other computers in your organization, and so you can actually access MCP Docker tools as well. I think at the last slide I have shows that. Now the other side is you can have an MCP server that calls web APIs and goes to get remote services as well through published APIs. And then this is a growing trend right now that like what we're seeing is, initially MCP servers, most of them were running locally. Now a lot are running remotely, and it's going to be even more so. The vendors are basically picking up on the fact that there's a huge business opportunity to create MCP servers for just about every SaaS product and feature, etc. So it's going to, and then people can create their, I can create my own MCP server and make it available. It can be running remotely in a cloud environment that I use, etc. But it's very high risk, and there's it's really, because you can't really control what people do, and since it's accessing, it potentially could be accessing some of your information. It's basically you're kind of living on the edge, with so I think one of the things that I hope we're going to see is the security around all of that will improve, and then basically it'll be I don't know if we can just continue to rely on API keys. It may have to be something a little bit more significant, like OAuth and things like that. So it's just different security models as well. Security is not my favorite topic, so I don't. That's about as much as I can say on that. So that's kind of it's basically becoming big business to create these servers. And so the MCP history is really defined by Anthropic, makers of Claude, initially available in Claude Desktop. It's been adopted by a lot of others. I think, John, you mentioned a bunch of other companies. There's a lot of sort of those smaller API type companies that really got into this as well early on. So they adopted it as well to provide interfaces to their APIs. But OpenAI has, with connectors now, has adopted that. Microsoft has adopted it into Copilot now. That's fairly recent news, I think. And then and then Google, we just saw with Google announced that they're supporting the standard as well. And then the AWS is, and then the developer tool vendors, I showed you some of those already, and certainly SaaS and API vendors, and I mentioned Docker as well. So we're rapidly emerging as a standard for AI and tool integrations. So I'll give you, this is the early on. I'm going to stop in a few minutes here, just because if there's any questions, we can do that. The early on, you used to have to go into Claude Desktop, and you'd have to specify, there's a configuration file you'd have to edit, and then in there you'd have to put in your describe your MCP servers, and it's in a JSON format file. It was a bit of a pain, and boy, I wasted a lot of time getting these things to work properly as well, because it's relying on a lot of different environments and tools. And then the one I'm going to show you is I basically use an MCP server to access a GIS, so I'll show you that one. But now in the newer environment, they've in Claude Desktop, down here, you can actually go to there's sort of standard ones that they have, like Google Drive and Gmail search and calendar search, but you can actually add integrations as well. So I'll just quickly look at that. Oops. Come on. My Claude Desktop is giving me the white screen of death. Just gonna see if I can get it to come back to real world. Okay, I'm just gonna get rid of that and let's try again. That should do it every time. Okay. One other thing I do with Claude, sometimes it gets to be a little bit finicky. So I find I have to go and close everything. There we go. So here's the Claude gives you a few integrations. They now call them integrations. It's and that's really in response to OpenAI calling theirs connectors. So you can actually add integrations here. Now, that's okay. I'm just playing around here. And then, so here's the standard ones you can connect to if you have. So I connected to Google Calendar. No, sorry, I connected to Google Drive this morning. I can connect again as well. Or you can add your own connection, and then you can specify a name, and then you have to give it an integration URL. So any of the MCP servers will have that information for you. It's usually a domain name /SSE. Now it seems to be the way that most of them are going now, instead of that configuration file, which I showed you earlier. So we used to have to do it like this. So it's greatly improved. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about OpenAI and ChatGPT connectors. Same kind of model. The only downside with OpenAI is that you have to do it with deep research. And those that have used deep research know you only get so many per month. I think what it is. I forgot what the number is, but and then also it is slow. Like deep research takes time, so it's actually a very frustrating environment to use connectors with deep research in OpenAI. I'm sure, like this was just their first cut at releasing MCP in this model. So over the next 4 to so months, I'm sure it's going to get a lot better, and it'll probably get rid of that reliance on deep research, having it to be deep research as well. And so I mentioned Claude integration. So with Claude, you don't need to do it with deep research, and it's available on the web version and the desktop version as well. So I wanted to give you an example. And so this is one that I'm just going to bring it up here so you can see here's the actual GIS tool that I'm using. And then I'm going to go here's Claude Desktop. And then I'm just going to go to a discussion I had already. Oops. All right, now my mouse is acting up. I guess I've been demoing for too long. It's telling me. Yeah, my mouse isn't working right now. Okay, since we're out of time, I would have liked to have shown you this. Let me see if I can get back to at least to the presentation.
I can hear you, but your image is freeze, Bill.
Ah, okay. Okay, so you can hear me. I guess we'll have to stop there because yeah, it's frozen for me. My desktop is frozen as well, except for my. So you can still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions that you wanted to have, and if it comes back in time, I'll.
Hello. Upstairs.
Any questions from the first session?
Bill, this is Gary. What are you, excuse me, what are you doing to protect your intellectual property here?
Sorry, everything's, my screen is acting a little weird. Can you still hear me?
Yes. Yeah. There you are.
Okay. Yeah, as far as intellectual property goes, like really what you're seeing is me exploring the capabilities of the tools. I do mean a lot of some of the stuff I showed you is for clients, but you know, you're seeing a sort of a toned down version of it as well with the clients, and then a lot of it is I actually figure things out, but I use Notion a lot. And I keep track of how I do everything. I have a big how-to section in Notion that is all the methodologies and how I made everything work and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of my intellectual property, I guess. Is that it's like I've never worried a lot about. I don't mind sharing a lot of stuff. The intellectual property to me is the how to do it. You know, it's really the that's what really becomes. Okay, I'm actually back from a mouse point of view, so it's so that's how I protect it. Any sort of intellectual property, and if it turns into a product, that's a whole different story. If it turns into, you know, a piece of intellectual property that I want to protect as a product, then I would. I think we talked about this in one of our previous meetings. There's sort of some tools out there to sort of move that forward from an IP point of view as well. So it's but so far I haven't had to worry too much about that. Like I'm really a enterprise AI company trying to help enterprises move forward with AI, and you know, it's some of the things I do become can be productized. Like my AI readiness assessment tool is productized as well, and so it's but I'm not losing a lot of sleep about IP right now.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I would just offer a comment in terms of security with MCP. In their latest update 6.18, they did classify all their servers as OAuth resource servers, and all that means is that there's a mechanism to add protected resource metadata. Yeah. Does that offer security? Not really. I mean, probabilistic tech cannot tell if it's a good hack or a bad hack. That's just the way it is. Yeah. It's best to well, for security, there's two things right now. There's human in the loop, and also the programming language you choose. You'll find that TypeScript tends to be the choice now. The source of truth for MCP is TypeScript, and most of the cutting edge platforms are going to TypeScript in part because it does provide that structure, that assurance, I guess, for lack of a better word, that the AI does like. Remember, AI is uncertain. If uncertain, the challenge is how you introduce the certainty to match that task to target.
Okay, I do have it working here now. You should be able to see my screen, and so I basically I'm using Claude Desktop, and I'm talking to a GIS package called QGIS, and then I can basically just say select sorry, let's say get project info, and so it's basically using MCP to actually get the see, this is what's bad about Claude, is that you're always dealing with limits with Claude. And,
but you should be able to start a new chat. It's just because
that's what I just did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so I'll go back again. I'll try again. Actually, I'm just gonna go here and say new chat. So I did that. So I'm just gonna say get start.
Bill, while you're doing this, let me just, because it's almost on the hour. And first of all, I have no problem leaving this room open. We can go a little bit further along for the ones who can stay. And for everyone else, thank you very much for being on today's call. And there was also a really good conversation on the other room on the there was several aspects how to maybe Dr. Shaman, if you want to give 30 seconds, what you got from yourself for this for your question, for your statement.
So basically what I said is being a part of this group helps me know what is going on around the world. I mean, in the AI world, and I don't need to know everything, but I should know what is available so that, no one can take me for a ride and say, I'm creating something personalized for you, which probably is already available out there.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. And thank you very much. So we will in upcoming calls, we're going to, there was several topics we discussed we won't have time to discuss them now, so I'll bring them back on the following Monday, but we are going to go more and more into looking at everyone in this team, see, is there any things that you could, like a one slider that you could present to introduce something to us, that a tool that you're using, something personal that you're excited about, and take a few minutes on the call to present it. So that's the kind of thing. Start thinking about that. We'll converse more in the next meeting about that, so we can learn from each other about your a part that you really like or you're very good at, and we can all learn from. So with that, I'll stay on the phone. I'll stay on this call for a few more minutes. Bill, you're the one doing the main presenting, so it's up to you when you have to go. And if you want to go a few more minutes, up to you. Otherwise, we'll.
Well, I can keep going. There's not much. I'll just go through this. As you were talking, I ran a couple of commands.
And for everyone else, thank you very much, and we will look forward to see you next week. The call recording will be done this afternoon. Thank you. Go ahead, Bill.
As you were talking, I basically wrote. I accessed the GIS tool through Claude Desktop, and then I basically told it to reproject what it initially was in geographic coordinates, so that's why it was sort of a square shaped. And I said reproject the file. I used to live in Alberta, so I happen to know that I can use the UTM projection, Universal Translocator Projection, Zone 11, and that's typically what you use for Alberta. And it reprojected the file, so that's what Alberta looks like normally, if you're looking at maps. And then I just told it to select all the cities, so it just converted to. It basically selected all of the cities and made them yellow in there as well. So it's and then you can ask as many questions as you want. I could have actually selected one city and said find all the cities within 100 miles of that city or 200 miles of that city. And so anything you can do in GIS, you can do now through Claude Desktop. And then I think there was someone on a previous call was doing something with digital elevation models. So I've also added that into the model as well. So you could actually start to query the elevations. I think the application was for Los Angeles for forest firefighting. For firefighting in Los Angeles due to the high slopes and all of that. So so basically, I don't even have to remember the commands in QGIS anymore. I can just come through Claude Desktop, and what's really neat, it's not just. I guess this is the point I forgot to make, was it's when you look at the when you look at the things you can call, the actual message, or it's almost like API calls you can make on the tool, it does those just fine. But then since it's Claude Desktop is running with the logical language model, you can start asking it all kinds of things about what's going on that it will figure out what commands to send through the MCP to the MCP server. And so it's not just it's not just exposing an API interface in an MCP server. There's intelligence in the MCP server. There's intelligence in Claude Desktop, which is the client in this case, and it's using that intelligence to sort of to really sort of figure out how to do things. And I basically wanted to show you one other one. I use RStudio for statistical analysis as well. So there's a mechanism for actually sort of working with data in RStudio from Claude Desktop as well. And it's so most of what you can do in our studio you can do from Claude Desktop. And the only other slide I wanted to show you was the Docker, was the MCP toolkit in Docker. So Docker is really good because if you have a lot of people that are using a variety of like Docker basically runs on your own PC as well, and then it can expose all of these MCP servers, and there's quite a list. Let me just see if I'm just going to go into my other. This is my This is actually my laptop. It's not the computer I'm on right now, but it's right beside me. So it's basically make some room here. So basically, here's Docker running, and you can really screens are just never big enough, eh? But it's got a whole bunch of different MCP servers. You can connect to Notion this way, and then they'll continue to add more. But what's neat about this is that with Docker, it actually has the whole platform. It actually has a virtual machine basically of it's probably a Unix or Windows or whatever, and it's running that, and then it's running the MCP server in that environment, and then the only thing that a lot of these require an external API key because you're going out in the cloud to get things from Notion and other tools as well. So that's kind of I'm just going to leave it off there. This was sort of my the trends in MCP that are happening right now. So it's really rapid adoption and enterprise integration. Remote MCP servers, that's becoming big now. Platform support, so we've seen, I've actually talked about some of that. Open source connectors as well. There's a lot of I can go to GitHub and find all kinds of MCP servers on GitHub, and basically install and run those on my local machine, and it gives me the access to all of those MCP servers as well. There's certainly a high priority now on security focus, which I think aligns with what John said. And then the developer tools, and then AI native design, which I haven't gotten into that yet. And then Cloudflare always makes it in there as well. And then there's challenges as well, just around performance. Performance can be a little challenging sometimes. It's a little slow. And then if you're doing automation with MCP servers, that maybe it's not that big of a problem. But if it's for doing things for the enterprises, usually there's a lot of real-time need, sort of performance requirements, and so it's a little bit challenging. Testing and validation, that needs a lot more work as well. And then I'll just leave the rest there. We talked about some of those already. But the general takeaway, it's powerful but still maturing. Most challenges stem from its newness and the complexity of standardizing as well. So that was it for today. If there's any questions, I've been happy to take them now, or we can save them for another time.
Ryan, you have a question?
I think Connie and I had a similar question, which is around data security. So, all this stuff is great, but if I'm talking to a Fortune 500 company and they say, oh, shoot, I don't want to use OpenAI, I don't want to use Gemini, I don't want to use Perplexity. How do you answer that question?
Well, I actually deal with that question a lot, and so my response is really, if you're relying on cloud, software as a service cloud vendors now, the large ones, the big ones like Microsoft and Amazon and things like that, then some people are okay with that type of environment if the data is moving with that environment, and that you basically have to see what those large vendors are doing with AI models as well, and they usually have controls on they truly do have secure cloud-based environments that do not your data does not contribute to the training of the large language model, because basically they're hearing this all the time from large companies. So it's the other one is to go with on premise. So I've looked at I've actually looked at two sort of models. One, the expensive model, basically getting the equipment from NVIDIA, the high price equipment from NVIDIA. Another one is to get more high powered computer solutions with two very high powered NVIDIA graphics cards, and then using open source models on those and extending the open source models, and then providing your local data in there. So that's one way. There's another vendor in Canada called Cohere, which basically creates highly secure large language models and environments that are actually high performance as well, that are secure. So if people are completely worried about security, then you basically have to go on premise, which can get expensive because even with a high performance computer with two high performance NVIDIA graphics cards, it's still, when it comes to if you want to use an open source language model, then you've got to sort of do a bunch of training again as well, and then there's actually a lot of resources required for just inferencing. So actually using the large
more aggressive. You guys are being really kind. If you've got a Fortune 500 company that's afraid of security, you should tell them that their head is in the sand. Yeah. There are multiple ways of solving this problem, multiple ways. And Bill just started going through a list of them. And if that's what's holding them back, they should fire their CTO or their CEO. Like, one of those people has got their head in the sand.
Well said, Mark.
Hey, you have a question?
No, Mark, let me put that in perspective. I have a sales talk on Friday with a top 5 consulting company.
Yeah.
That's their issue. And they have 320,000 consultants. They're not stupid or slow.
Yeah. So you tell them to spend $250,000, buy a bunch of their NVIDIA computers and air gap it wherever they want to put it. You want to put it on their premise? You want to put it on a hybrid? I mean, are you using Salesforce.com? It's like, oh my gosh, are you insane? Do you know how insecure it is? It's exactly the same thing.
Another one.
They may be afraid of something else other than actual security. They may be afraid of it going rogue or doing some other things. But if you're talking about security, that was an issue 3 years ago. They are completely ignorant. Somebody in their senior management team is completely ignorant. And I'm sorry if it's, but go talk to BCG. They've to tell them they should go work for BCG, or get BCG to come in and help them. Well, we're among friends here. I would never say that to a client. But I mean, the DoD is using this. Andrel's using this, and it's like, I'm sorry. Your clients are probably not going to cause people to die, and there are ways of making it work. So, yeah,
there are ways of making it work, but there's a difference between using it and it being secure. There is no such thing as a probabilistic firewall.
Absolutely.
Non-negotiable statement, microphone drop. So there are mitigations. So I think the way to address it is to lean into the reality of the tech and suggest that you just don't throw out a super intelligent worldview because you're going to have to do a little bit of work in order to engineer certainty,
Very well.
There is no probabilistic firewall. That's where you start the conversation.
Yeah. I've been looking at Snowflake lately as well, which is it's a cloud-based database, AI, they pretty much BI, AI database, etc. And they actually have put a lot of attention into security around that data, because there's large organizations that are using that product, and they have to sort of I hate using the word guarantee just after what John said, but they have to basically develop an architecture that supports large companies using that environment in a secure manner.
I would mention I've had the pleasure over the last few years of being with a group of hackers where whenever a new model is introduced, it's jailbreaked and it's hacked into dust immediately. In fact, we hacked Sam Altman's presentation as he was giving the presentation. It's probabilistic tech, and our expertise will be how we mitigate that and leverage the power by using our skill set to introduce that certainty. I think most of us years from now may actually call ourselves a different term that sounds like a plumber, because we're going to be showing up to clean up a lot of stuff that was done in the past.
Ray, do you have a question?
Well, it's a follow-on. I wasn't it's not follow-on from just what you said, but I have something else to say. But I was thinking, for Brian's perspective, what is the best resource or collection of resources that actually addresses that issue? Because if you go into a meeting and people are fear-based, is it possible to overcome their amygdala brains that are so concerned about it that they can't listen to reason? So that's just a question. You can send that information direct to Brian, but I was just commiserating with Brian's plight of having to go into that meeting. But actually, I want to dovetail back onto something you were talking earlier about. There's no such thing as an error-free system. There's always going to be errors. Maybe there might be, but I'm not holding breath for that. So the question then is really, well, how do you best mitigate against those small risks, number one? And number two, knowing that there is so much misinformation and you sort of berating LMMs, but they still have useful functions. The question then, where does the human factor come in to actually more effectively deal with, I prefer to use the word misinformation than hallucinations. And what are the shortcomings of, or what are the inherent biases? How do you do it? And the question is, human resources are limited. And the question is, well, then how do you target it in such a way that you can identify or use other tools to be able to do that? I just went through an exercise with an AI search. It came out with predictable biases. Then I started prompting it in such a way to de-bias the biases. And eventually I got a response that said, now this makes sense. The first response did not make sense because it was just reflecting societal biases. So, I mean, that's where the human wisdom factor comes in about how to discern things when there are flagrant biases that you can see that need to be de-biased so that you can get at a better approximation for the information or resources you want. Interesting enough, while this was going on, I was actually doing an AI search about the good of AI, how it can be used for good. I did an extensive AI search, and then I did a summary page in Notebook LM. Now, the reason why I focused on the good was because I'm more concerned about the bad and the ugly. And the bad and the ugly is something that I want to get to. But because it was getting into the political realm, I was advised that this had to be apolitical. So I decided, okay, I'll start on the good. How can AI be used for good? And this is just the first, cut at it. There's a Notebook LM 15-minute thing. I'm sure there's lots of misinformation in that. And that's where crowdsourcing, people coming together, can begin to say, okay, what's substantive, what's iffy, and what's clearly misinformation? And to me, this is just academic fodder to be able to lower the floor of ignorance, but the human factor can help us elevate the wisdom or break through the ceiling of wisdom. So it's really the synergy between the two, and how do we orchestrate that? Use the metaphor of orchestration, which implies a conductor. Well, I'm concerned about isolated conductors because conductors have their ways and whatever. And having just been at a jazz festival, I'm more interested in improvisation, where people are playing off each other. And how do you do that improvisation in a way that you can actually harness the power of AI human synergies, which is the upside. But we have to be aware of the dark side. The dark side is really, substantial. And I think that's one of the things we're faced with, is how can we actually, Reid Kaufman in his book talks about the bloomers and the doomers. And it is a battle between the doomers and the bloomers. And this is the epic, hero's journey all over again. And can we get the upper hand? So any reactions?
I completely agree.
Yeah, well, I
That's
love
the
your,
challenge. That's the challenge.
yeah, I
It
love your
is,
point.
isn't it?
I love your point about the positive side, right? It's, you know, it's like, no, you know, don't open up your financials and expose them to an MCP server and let your customers be looking at it. Like, why would you do that? But also, why would you be telling your salespeople to not use a chat GPT to help them with their emails?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just insane. It's like,
It is.
let's risk bound the domains and then choose it
Exactly.
and start working with it. Like come on, guys. They read it, you know, obviously it bothers me deeply, some of this stuff. The news sees the announcement that, you know, the AI will blackmail your employees. Well, if you actually read through what it took them to get it to blackmail their employees, nobody would do that in their right mind.
Exactly.
Well,
like,
you know, one of the things I'm interested in is, well, how can you use AI in such a way that you can hijack the amygdala hijacking?
yeah,
You get me? You get me? That's what it comes down to. And can we create a place of equanimity where we can have a more balanced, nuanced way of harnessing the good, mitigates against the bad, and hopefully eliminate the ugly.
Yeah.
And you know, that's the bit with this that's counterintuitive. The most important component of any AI integration is a component that everybody thought was going to be deprecated, the human component.
Right.
And you know, when you're actually going into a real life organization and you're building a system that moves the needle, everything starts and ends with the humans in there to assist them in matching that task to target and to you know, introduce certainty, which is the human, given that we know that this tech is uncertain if uncertain. And I will say to you that participating in conversations out of Silicon Valley for a decade, the majority of the folks there, either they don't get it or they don't want to get it for whatever reason. And that's a longer conversation, but there's a real opportunity for us in the land of the real, talking to real people, offering real solutions, and dealing with the reality of this tech.
All I can say is I am optimistic, but you also have to be a pessimist as well. It's both and, right?
So I can imagine, I wouldn't do this again, but I'd imagine walking into a room with a big bag of stuff in it and Fortune 500 company, and they're saying, you know, like, we're concerned about security and risk and so forth. It's like, big company, like, do you have anybody out there? Is it like a carpenter working on site somewhere? And I open the bag and I pull out a skill saw and stick it on the table. Like, have you got anybody, you know, that's taking care of your lawn and the trees and so forth? And you bring out a small chainsaw and stick it on the table. It's like, imagine having a business where you have these things wandering around all over and you're not even aware of them. You could be cutting off limbs and you know, like cutting through cable wires, and yet somehow you have an enterprise that can handle the risk. You know, we need to risk. Well, let's put these things in boxes and work through them. But just saying, like, no, we can't have saws on site. Like, seriously, you can't have a chat GPT operating to help some of your admins do a better job communicating? Give me a break. And I'm dealing with the customers dealing with that right now. I just can't believe it. You know, it's like 43% of the large corporations don't have an AI program. Like, how did we get here today where that's the reality?
Still a little bit separate from that conversation, but that was on, you know, I'm an ex-Citrix. I used to work there, and most of the employees we have there are either Citrix, Microsoft, Apple, name it, you know, the usual. And I asked about AI, and outside of basic email, you know, facilitating email and stuff like this, like basic Copilot stuff, they don't use it. They still don't build presentation. All the things we talk about on this call on a weekly basis are not being used.
Well,
either
you know,
by ignorance, lack of education, or not even security in that case, but
lack of imagination.
Curiosity as well. But I will add, don't worry about them because they're going to get left behind. You know,
Right.
the people, you know,
I'm
don't worry
talking on
about
some
them.
of the top companies. I mean,
Oh, no, I know that.
Was it Microsoft now is enforcing they are getting part of the remuneration or the review at the end of the year is how much use of AI do you use? I think I just read that today, actually, this morning. That's the because even in this top-notch company, they're still using the old pots.
Well, just remember Kodak, right?
I think, Rick, just for your point, you were talking about AI for good, and then the next statement you said, just don't worry about it. They're gonna be left behind.
Although I anticipate a bifurcation where people speak negatively about AI in the front room, and in the back room, they're using it.
They're using it. Yeah. Yeah. Morgan's. Yeah.
Because that's the devious, that's the devious negative deviants, right? Who are trying to
I mean, there's
very good at that.
an inherent danger that at some point to super intelligence, they say next year, maybe now, they keep moving it further, closer and closer, and where we won't be in charge. And but yeah, then in rules and regulation, I'm not following up. We can certainly in the US, certainly in China and Europe is trying to put rules. Therefore, they are left behind. Exactly what you said, and they will have a very minor role in the evolution of this. And it's kind of like, yeah, super intelligence could take over governance, literally. I mean, that's and I was listening to a podcast where said the first one that comes with super intelligence will be nationalized because the government will be able to let a private entity run that. And the other side is like, okay, knowing that there's not going to be much of a regulation, there's been no effort. You can put parameters. I hear some things, but there's not much happening there, and the other options of letting it go by, I mean, staying behind and not doing is obviously not an option. Nobody on this call will be here if they had this mindset. So yeah, there's a gap. There's a danger zone for sure.
But there's also a little nuance there that researchers figured out towards the end of 2023 that this version of AI would not produce this AGI or ASI. It'd be a super intelligent worldview. But it's probability theory. If you take a look at the research papers from late 23, they tried to model this in every possible way, physics, any way to get away from probability theory. There's no such thing as perfect prediction. The basic denominator is infinite. You cannot eliminate infinite possibilities. That's why you see this other school of thought, which is mostly meta, which is about embodiment. It's like the old Vulcan credo, infinite diversity and infinite combinations. Yeah, they can't remove infinite possibilities, so they're going to try and present infinite scenarios. Both are hard lifts. We have a lot more time in this than any of us really imagine. We're going to see iterative growth, but we're not going to see the super intelligent that's going to come in and replace us. Not happening.
I agree, especially the work I've been doing over the last couple of weeks. It's been AI. I talked about this earlier in the presentation. AI has become a frustration. It's like I don't know how many times I said, "How come you're so freaking dumb?" It's and I finally realized that sure they've sort of have trained on all the world's social media data, but there's so much more information that's out there that they haven't trained on. I really do think that the ASI and that is much further away than and I even look at these, the tools are, the coding tools, they're good, but boy, they still got lots of challenges, so it's just so I'm not, I have to admit, the more I use AI, the less impressed I get.
And also, if you were in it in early days, you recognize how stupid it still is. As stupid as it was from the first day. Yeah,
I was in it. I was using AI and Prolog and expert systems. I was doing all of that stuff when I was, I forget what years, the 80s, I think it was mid 80s. And actually, the AI wave actually stopped because people realized this is just brute force, right? We're basically, we think it's intelligent, but it's just brute force. And then, and I thought we were sort of, we had sort of cut through that on this wave through, but the more I use, I'm starting to go, well, maybe we haven't quite got there.
Yeah, I think field by field would be different. The ones that are more probably, mathematical and so on, the average, the level of progress is incredible. Other ones will lag behind for all the all the connection, all the thinking like a human type stuff will be more complex. All right,
Okay.
1
I'm
o'clock.
going
we
to
call it
go to the
today.
other side as well, but just let's not forget that our organizations are filled with humans who are error prone. Like,
Exactly.
Yes.
you know, like sometimes, you know, my AI acts like a couple of the Asperger's guys I had on my team a while ago. It's like sometimes they're just like genius, like really good. And then in the middle of a conversation, they'll like go completely off the rails in some bizarre way. It's like, where did that come from? And like, why did you do that? They have a reason, like, but it sounds like sometimes what my AI does. So it's like this, it's a fallacy to say that just because you're using humans, it's going to be perfect every time. It's like, no, somebody's going to leave an ether port open on a pump at some off grid or connected to the grid station. And it turns out that Ethernet will plug you straight into the mainframe. That happened to on a hack they found on some power company had an early days old station, and they had all this stuff, and they had an Ethernet port that was publicly available, and somebody plugged their computer into it, and it went straight through all their firewalls. Like, now why would somebody do that? Like, they forgot because it was a human.
Anyway, I got to scoot.
Thanks for
I
putting
enjoyed
up
the
with my rant
conversation.
today.
Have a
Thank
good
you
day.
so much, gentlemen. John, I look forward. I'll follow up with you. I just linked to you on LinkedIn so I can track in a few weeks. You can ping us back when you feel you're ready, please, to share that, because obviously there's a huge interest here, and can't wait to hear about it. Bill, thanks a billion.
Yeah, thank you,
A lot of work as always.
Great.
And thank you. Mark, pleasure. Really good conversation. You guys have a fantastic week. Talk to you next week.
Take care, guys.